39 people. The room feels less like a home and more like a military barracks. They are all wearing the same black tracksuits. They all have the exact same haircut. And on their feet, identical brand new black and white Nike sneakers. In their pockets, exactly $5.75 in change. And an ID card. When police entered the mansion in San Diego, they stared in disbelief. There was no blood, no screams, no signs of a struggle. Although it looked like a suicide scene, this was actually a waiting lounge for travelers who had packed their bags. The only difference was, to reach their destination, they had to leave their personality. This isn't a horror movie script. This is one of the strangest mass suicides to ever happen on American soil. But to them, this wasn't suicide. To them, this was a graduation. They believed their human bodies were merely containers. And they were certain that on that day they would shed those containers and board a spaceship hiding behind the Hale-Bopp Comet. Their name, Heaven's Gate. Their leader, Marshall Applewhite, also known as Do. Today we open the case archive file. We are investigating the unbelievable story of a group that recruited followers via a website, watched Star Trek, and ultimately ended their lives to ascend to the next level. It all started in a hospital room in the early 70s. Marshall Applewhite was a former music professor whose career was over. He was struggling with his sexual identity, depression, and hearing voices. That's where he met Bonnie Nettles, a nurse at the hospital. The bond between them wasn't romantic. It was spiritual. Bonnie convinced Marshall that he was special. According to them, they were the two witnesses mentioned in the book of Revelation in the Bible. Aliens who had come to Earth in human form. Their mission? To find the chosen ones and save them from this world. Their names changed. First, they were Bo and Peep. Then, they became Do and Ty. Like musical notes, they started traveling across America. Everywhere they went, they told people, Earth is a recycling center. The apocalypse is coming, and the only way to survive is to abandon your humanity and come with us. They convinced hundreds of people, hundreds who left behind their families, their children, and their careers. Because Do and T offered them something no one else could, the feeling of completely detaching from this world and belonging to the stars. The rules set for the group members weren't just difficult, they were strict and ruthless. If they wanted to ascend to the next level, they had to erase everything about their human lives. Sex was forbidden. Alcohol and drugs were forbidden. Looking human was forbidden. Even gender distinctions were prohibited. Male and female separation was unacceptable. That's why even their haircuts were identical. They wore baggy clothes that hid their body shapes. They even gave up their names. They took on new nicknames, but they all ended with Odie. The goal was to abandon individuality entirely and represent the group, to create a hive mind. Some male members, including the leader Do, even went to Mexico to get surgically castrated to fully conquer their sexual urges. This was the absolute peak of their devotion, or their madness. They saw themselves as students in a metamorphic class. Their bodies were just vehicles, and they were preparing to abandon that vehicle. In 1985, the group's co-leader, Bonnie T.I., died of cancer. This was devastating for Marshall, D.U., because according to their beliefs, they weren't supposed to die. They were supposed to board the ship with their bodies. Marshall immediately changed the narrative to keep the cult from falling apart. Ty didn't die. She simply left her vehicle and went ahead to the next level to prepare the spaceship. Now, their only goal was to reunite with Ty. By the mid-90s, Heaven's Gate had modernized in a strange way. They moved into a luxury mansion in San Diego, and to support themselves, they founded a web design company, Higher Source. Yes, you heard that right. In the primitive internet era of the 90s, these cult members were designing professional websites. Their clients had no idea they were working with a UFO cult preparing for suicide. They were disciplined, hardworking, and tech-savvy. But in 1997, the sign they had been waiting for appeared in the sky. The Hale-Bopp Comet. It was approaching Earth and was bright enough to be seen with the naked eye at night. At that time, on Art Bell's famous Coast to Coast radio show, a claim was made. An amateur astronomer said he had photographed a Saturn-like massive object hiding in the tail of the comet, while scientists said it was just a star. For Marshall Applewhite, this was proof. "This is it," he told his followers. "Ty has returned. The ship is coming to pick us up. It's time to buy our tickets." At the end of March 1997, final preparations began in the mansion. This wasn't a chaotic environment. There was no panic. Everything was planned with military discipline. Members recorded farewell videos. In the videos, they were smiling. They were excited. One of them said, "I've spent 31 years on this planet, and honestly, there is nothing here for me." On March 22nd, 1997, they ordered and ate their favorite meal, pizza. The next day, the exit began. The suicides took place in shifts over 3 days. First, one group consumed a lethal dose of phenobarbital mixed into applesauce or pudding. To speed up the effect, they washed it down with vodka. Then, to ensure they stopped breathing, they placed plastic bags over their heads. The survivors covered the dead with purple shrouds, and when their turn came, they did the same. The last 2 people died only from the drugs, as there was no one left to place bags over their heads. Each of them had a small amount of money and an ID in their pocket, and everyone had exactly $5.75 in change. Why? According to an old joke within the group, it was the interplanetary toll, or money for a payphone. They kept their sense of humor until the very last moment. When the police entered, they were shocked. These people didn't look crazy. Computer programmers, former soldiers, mothers, fathers, they had all believed in Marshall Applewhite's persuasive words and promises. Here is the creepiest detail. The Heaven's Gate website is still online today. It stands exactly as it was, with its 90s neon colors and simple design. Why? Because 2 members who were left behind, who didn't commit suicide, still manage the site. They answer your emails. They will sell you the cult's tapes. To them, their leaders didn't die. They just left. The Hale-Bopp Comet passed by. There was no spaceship behind it. It left behind nothing but 39 pairs of empty Nike shoes and unanswered questions. Heaven's Gate showed us how powerful and dangerous belief can be. If you believe the right story at the right time, poisoned applesauce can look like a ticket to salvation. Those who looked up at the sky that night saw only a comet, but they saw a ticket home. This is the Case Archive. Be careful when looking at the stars, and keep your mind safe.